फ्रेमवर्क दें, हम आपको पॉलिसी कंटिन्यूटी दें, और जो भी हम आपको फर्स्ट लॉस गारंटीज़ हैं या सब्सिडी अमाउंट्स हैं वो हम आपको ज़रूर देंगे, लेकिन हमारी अमल मुदाखलत बिल्कुल नहीं होगी, बिकॉज द प्राइवेट सेक्टर विच हैज़ टू लीड द कंट्री. So this came up as a joint venture between Ministry of Finance, the commercial banks and IFC, and I want to commend you because PMRC has indeed moved from strength to strength. Figures and statistics aapne khud hi bata di hain in terms of the disbursements that have happened, and especially in the low cost space, and also from a diversity agenda, what the composition of your portfolio is. So all sounds good. Now where do we go from here? देखिए, इस हाउसिंग का डायरेक्ट लिंकेज है with two existential problems for Pakistan, and I keep on talking about it, and I'll keep on repeating it, that as much as we are now focused कि IMF के साथ कल क्या है, आज क्या है, immediate economic turnaround, taxation पे क्या है, energy reforms में हम क्या कर रहे हैं, SOEs के साथ क्या कर रहे हैं, privatization, two existential problems, और ये हम sequentially नहीं लेके चल सकते. ये इंतज़ार नहीं कर सकते कि ये 3 साल का प्रोग्राम कंप्लीट हो जाए and then we deal with it. One is population and the other is climate. Population related पहले भी बात हो चुकी है, 240-250 million netizens, unfortunately growing at 2.55%. It's not sustainable. उसके साथ जो चीज़ें जुड़ी हुई हैं और जो linkages हैं, चाइल्ड स्टंटिंग की बात है, उसके साथ जो पॉवर्टी लर्निंग की बात है, स्पेशली गर्ल्स आउट ऑफ स्कूल, एंड द थर्ड थिंग एसोसिएटेड विद दैट, हाउसिंग. बिकॉज हाउसिंग, ये दिस इज नॉट जस्ट अबाउट फाइनेंसिंग, दिस इज शेल्टर, दिस इज सोशो इकोनॉमिक स्टेबिलिटी, दिस इज एवरीथिंग एसोसिएटेड विद दैट इशू which is the population and the way we are growing. Therefore, housing is such a critical element, and to fix it, to get it right, is going to be very critical as we go forward. And the second is obviously climate. बहुत पहले भी चीज़ें हो चुकी हैं, earthquake आ चुके हैं, लेकिन 2022 के जो floods हैं was a real wake-up call in terms of rescue, rehabilitation, reconstruction. And you mentioned the government of Sindh. I do think they've done a very, very good job in terms of at least taking the first step in terms of moving towards more resilient housing, and how they have, started moving in that direction, rather than वापस जाके उन्हीं water banks पे फिर वही घर बनाने हमने शुरू कर दिए. So that is something which is again linked to it. Now, so I just wanted to connect housing into these two things, and therefore the topic of your conference in terms of affordable and resilience part of it is directly linked with two existential problems for the country. अब आ जाइए कि different actors ने और different stakeholders ने करना क्या है. I was actually talking to the governor of State Bank only about a week back, just picking up the threads from where we left about 2 or 3 years back. और उसमें दो चीज़ें जो अभी आपने जिक्र नहीं किया, you mentioned many other things, but two things which still have to be solved if we have to take mortgage financing and we want to encourage everyone to come into in a big way into it. One is, and we have talked about it for the longest time, a regulatory authority. And we haven't really done a good job in terms of taking that discussion forward. And therefore, it's something which I would be very keen to work with the governor to, because uske baghair, without the gradings and without saying, who's there and who's investable, who's bankable, it becomes tough. And the second is foreclosure. Again, we made some good progress over the years, but practically, no one is convinced that this is going to work or this is working. तो ये अपने आप को एक फरेब देने की बात है कि जी हमने वो foreclosures law का कर दिया, हमने वो देख लिए जी, अब सब अच्छे की खबर नहीं, अच्छे की खबर. If people are not convinced that this is something which which provides them the protection then it's not going to work. So that's what the government needs to do. These are the type of things which I think, in partnership with the State Bank, Ministry of Finance would be would be forthcoming to provide any support from the government to take these two aspects forward. Again, to provide the enabling environment. Now let's come to the financing part of it and the banking industry. I think उसमें अभी आपने देखा है, some of the banks, some of the microfinance banks are doing a commendable job. Others have to join. And देखिए वो हम काम नहीं करेंगे जो हमने पहले किया. We are not going to go back to directed lending. That creates distortions, and it has implications for the medium term. So that was a wrong thing to do, and we are not going to repeat that. So the second thing is कि incentivization हमने create करनी है ताकि जो banks हैं, microfinance banks हैं, वो इसको आगे लेकर चलें, अपने आप processes जो हैं उसको आप जितना उसको सहल बना सकते हैं, जितना I think ease of doing business is going to be a very important part of it. The two enabling elements I've already mentioned. Also, you know, we have the industry invested quite a bit in terms of income estimation models. This is आप जो आप low cost housing की बात कर रहे हैं, वहाँ proxies पे बहुत बात हुई, and actually millions of dollars were spent in terms of seeing how we take these models forward. तो ये नहीं हो सकता कि administration change हो, कुछ कभी मैं इधर हूँ, कभी कोई और इधर हो, and everything gets into sunk cost. It's a lot of money that the industry spent, and I want to see the results, because the whole thought process at that time was that these income estimation models are there for low-cost housing, but they can further be used for other asset classes as we go forward. और वो सारा हमने कर करा के उसको dump कर दिया कहीं, because administration changed. That is what the government needs to do: provide policy framework and policy continuity. It doesn't matter. Housing, as I said, is existential to the population and the climate thing, and therefore we have to go, full throttle forward with this. Now, what I certainly hope कि जो आपने ये आज conference की है, I see brilliant minds, I see senior practitioners, people who have known the issues for the longest time, but आपकी तरफ से I sincerely hope that some very practical recommendations would be coming on the back of not only the senior practitioners who are here from Pakistan, but जैसे आपने mention किया, we have foreign delegates, and we want to and we need to learn from your best practices and ensure that we can success transfer some of that into Pakistan, because some of the countries that you represent have done a fantastic job overall in housing and construction. But any views and ideas that you have in terms of the low-cost housing and the affordable housing as well would be most welcome. So once again, आपने public-private partnership की बात की है. From my perspective, I just again want to reiterate, the government is there to help, support, assist anywhere we can. But government is not going to do this in the government. ये होगा प्राइवेट सेक्टर में ही. हम आपको पूरी सपोर्ट देंगे, लेकिन जहां हमने 3-4 साल पहले जो एक्सपेरिमेंट्स किए हैं वो दोबारा नहीं होंगे. ना स्टेट बैंक में होंगे, ना मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस इस पे कोई ऐसी बात करेगी. You have to be incentivized as a private sector. That's the only sustainable way of dealing with this existential issue. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish you a very successful conference. Thank you again for the invitation.